evening. You're watching The Big Story with Haryanto Diman. I'm Olivia Quay.
Coming up on the show, I speak to two of our colleagues on dating and online dating in a time of COVID-19. It should make for a fun chat. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the Straits Times channel if you haven't already done so.
Registration for children starting Primary 1 next year will go entirely online, starting from July 1st until October 30th. The Education Ministry will also introduce a cap on the intake of permanent resident children in primary schools from this year's exercise.
The cap will be about 25 to 30% of a school's planned Primary 1 intake. Going forward, every year, the ministry will review and publish the list of schools that will have to reflect a cap on their intake of PR children.
Let's bring in the Straits Times senior education correspondent Sandra Davy to discuss this. Sandra, let's talk first about the P1 registration going fully online. The in-person registration process can already be very stressful for some parents. So what about parents who may not be as tech savvy to navigate the online registration process? Will help be given to them?
Yes, okay. Actually, it's quite a simple process, and I believe most parents should be able to handle it quite well. But for those who need extra help, they can reach out to the schools that they are applying for their children and seek their help. So there's help available. Um, but the stress is nothing really to do with the process, but more about choosing the right school and
Mhm.
especially a school that's very competitive. And then parents experience a lot of stress trying to get their kids in.
And Sandra, on that note, what advice then do you have for parents picking a school?
Okay, so every year I get queries from parents just before the registration exercise begins. And unfortunately, a lot of parents still want a place in schools that are uh, what they consider top schools, top in terms of producing top students for the PSLE, when really they should be focused on choosing the right school for their child. What parents have to think about is if they do get a place, or if they do manage to get their children into a top school academically, will the child actually be able to handle uh, uh, the very competitive environment sometimes that comes along in these schools? Because some children don't thrive well in such environments. And in fact, there's a lot of research showing that you should get kids into schools where they feel confident and where they feel that they are doing well compared to their peers and not the other way around.
Well, Sandra, MOE also announced that it will conduct an annual review of the schools that have to cap their intake of PR children. So, a two-part question for you. Why the need for this, and how do you think parents will react, assuming that PRs don't place as much emphasis on what schools their children attend?
Well, actually, I think even PRs do have preferred schools. Having said that, they will also want schools that are not too far away from their homes, especially for young children. You don't want them to spend too much time traveling from home to school and back. But having said that, I think even PR kids tend to bunch up in particular schools. It's not so bad, according to the Education Ministry. And in fact, they listed only 10 schools where the proportion of PR children is between 25 and 30%. And said at these schools, parents have to keep in mind the proportion because this cap will apply from this year onwards. And really, the idea is you don't want too many PR kids all in one school. I think our Singaporean kids can gain from interacting with kids from other backgrounds, other countries, and it'll be good if they are spread out, into as many schools as possible.
Sandra, you have a commentary piece out tomorrow on how the COVID-19 pandemic has shown the lack of resources and support that children from disadvantaged homes have outside of school. Now, during the circuit breaker, schools have stepped up, providing meals, laptops, tablets for these students. Back in March, the government also said that by 2028, all secondary school students will have their own digital device as part of National Digital Literacy Program. Do such measures put us on the right track towards giving long-term help to these disadvantaged kids post-pandemic?
Right. So with the pandemic and learning moving online and into the homes, I think what's become apparent, at least to the public, is the fact that some kids from disadvantaged homes do lack support and the kind of resources that kids in more advantaged homes have. But our schools have been great in that they have swung into action. They have provided laptops, tablets, routers to these kids who need additional devices. Those who really can't find space to study at home and where it's not conducive can go back to school. Although I hear that parents still want to keep their kids home because they fear that they may get infected. But having said all this, the point I want to make is, and that I'm making in my comment piece, is that these efforts will have to be long-term. They cannot be one-off or just provided to get over this crisis. It has to be long-term. It has to be sustained to really help these kids, lift these kids out of this cycle of poverty that they are in.
Well, Sandra, I want to throw back to an earlier story you wrote about how schools are helping their disadvantaged students during home-based learning, and it prompted some shock from readers. Were you surprised that that article revealed something that was otherwise not talked about?
Actually, this is happening around the world because the media is highlighting some of these inequities and frailties in our system that has been exposed by this crisis. But I think, well, it's good to have more public awareness. But what we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do about it now? What actions must we take to address these inequities? Because if not, we risk some of these children falling even further behind.
Well, Sandra, thank you so much for speaking with us. That was our senior education correspondent, Sandra Davy. Look out for her commentary piece in the paper tomorrow. It'll also be on our website at straitstimes.com.
The Health Ministry confirmed 533 new cases today, including 3 Singaporeans and permanent residents, with foreign workers living in dormitories making up the bulk of the remaining cases. Today's count takes the total number to 32,876. More details will be released later this evening.
Yesterday, MOH added 2 locations to its list of public places visited by people with COVID-19 for more than 30 minutes when they were infectious. These are the Wet Market at Block 963, Jurong West Street 91, and the Fair Price Extra Supermarket in Jurong Point Mall. The ministry named the locations as a precaution to inform those who were at these places to monitor their health closely for 2 weeks from the date of their visit. They should also see a doctor promptly if they develop symptoms.
In other news, about 1 million new masks were collected yesterday, the first day of the latest nationwide distribution exercise. Most Singapore residents claimed their masks over the counter at community clubs and residents' committee centres island-wide. But those who used the 24-hour vending machines said it was quick and convenient. About 6 million reusable masks are available in this latest exercise, which will span 3 weeks until June 14th.
The Fortitude budget announced yesterday was mostly about jobs, saving current jobs, creating new jobs, and upskilling workers to prepare for the future. For example, a new $2 billion SG United Jobs and Skills package will create close to 100,000 opportunities for workers affected by the COVID-19 economic slowdown.
As businesses seek to adapt to a new normal, what about the workforce as a whole? Earlier this month, National Development Minister Lawrence Wong said Singaporeans will need to embrace working from home as the new norm. So how can we rethink jobs in a post-pandemic world?
Well, let's delve deeper into this with Fang Yulin, partner at PwC Singapore. She also leads the upskilling efforts for the firm. Welcome, Yulin. Well, as we've seen since the virus broke out, people can change the way we work. Yulin, both of us are working from home, for example. So, besides telecommuting, what other changes are happening in the workforce amid the pandemic?
Well, the world was already rapidly changing, particularly in the area of digital adoption, but the COVID-19 has accelerated it. So there is a strong recognition that technology will continue to accelerate, and therefore the skills gap from current to what's required will widen if nothing is done. So apart from telecommuting, I do see instances of individuals starting to upskill themselves through online programs, paid or complimentary. In terms of other changes, as a start, the observation is that the workforce is adapting quickly to the use of a variety of digital tools. But companies understand that to be able to be well positioned, the workforce will need to continue to develop some important attributes that will be useful for now and also in the future. So some of these attributes could be digital and data savviness for its employees. Whether or not you're working in a factory, an office, or an F&B, you will need to get more comfortable with digital tools or even a range of digital tools which can evolve too. A case in point that we have adapted is that we've adapted well and are comfortable now with a range of conferencing tools. And even some hawker centers have already pivoted to digital payments. Another area I think that the companies are focusing on in terms of their people is creativity and innovation. We have already seen a lot of creativity and innovation during the pandemic. Can we see more products and services that are highly valued being further created? Another area is flexibility and adaptability. An individual will have to upgrade their skills, adapt to evolving workspaces, and the gig economy could be set to grow too. I also think that there is a general understanding that apart from drawing up a very well-designed plan, continues to be extremely important, and the ability to refine and reiterate those plans as well.
Right. Yulin, you've outlined most of the benefits of working in this new landscape. What about the cons? Are there any cons in terms of working in this new landscape?
Yeah, actually, the advice has been quite clear for now. Work from home must be used to the maximum extent possible. We have to accept that this is a reality. Actually, Straits Times just did a survey. It mentioned that about 9 out of 10 would like to work from home to various extents. Some of the benefits cited are that it can cut down travel time. Not traveling means more health and safety, and they can also spend more time with family and have increased flexibility as well. There could even be potential cost savings. So there are advantages of working from home. However, talking about the disadvantages or the cons, there are also potential dark sides to working from home. One area I believe could be a concern is that whilst responsible businesses are encouraging their employees to work from home, we should not forget that there could be some in our midst who might not have conducive work or home environments for one reason or another. So how can the business community, how can the community at large help these families with these kind of workers with these kind of situations? So, I mean, also central to strong workforce, I think, is a workforce which has also very strong well-being. As you know, different people adapt differently to work from home situations. A common feedback that I've been hearing is that working from home could also mean working into your own personal time and reduce productivity. Some say that they also feel as if they are having a bit of cabin fever. So I think that leadership and the HR function have a key role to play in implementing programs which address mental wellness and also advising how to manage your own time as well.
Yulin, I mean, you said earlier that, of course, working from home is a reality that we'll have to accept. But on that note, can Singapore's infrastructure support a predominantly work from home scenario?
I think broadly, Singapore infrastructure can, but as I mentioned before, we have to be just extra careful and also mindful of pockets of individuals who might not have the hardware to work from home or even learn from home. So it's important that they are supported so that they can be included in this new reality.
And on that note as well, Yulin, how can Singaporeans prepare for a post-COVID world to remain employable?
Yeah, I can see that Singaporeans are already investing in themselves to upskill. I also note that some students, even as first-time job seekers or preparing for themselves for internship or traineeship, they are also taking courses to obtain more comprehensive skills. I would say that the mindset is important. Individuals should be relentless in their pursuit of excellence, developing strong technical skills and also complemented by softer type of skills, despite changes in the working environment. A point to note is that in this new season, whilst your competition can be global, whilst people feel that competition can be global, and likewise, an individual's opportunities can also be global. So in the recent Fortitude budget that was delivered by DPM Heng yesterday, the government has outlined some very useful ways that one can remain employable across individuals who are in jobs, in between jobs, self-employed, or are first-time job seekers. Some of the initiatives that were set out, useful initiatives, such as the 21,000 traineeship programs, the 30,000 opportunities to upskill themselves whilst they're looking for a job. This covers, monthly basic expenses as well. And for an individual who wants to pivot from one job role to another can also, make use of the career conversion program.
Right. Well, Yulin, you touched on, hiring can be global, opportunities can be global as well. So, but if companies in Singapore can hire people to work remotely from anywhere in the world, what are the implications for locals here?
Yeah, I would say that I do think that you're right. People can now seek to look for their tasks, right, to be fulfilled from anyone from a different geography. But I would think that you have to see to how ubiquitous this could be, and this needs to be analyzed from a scenario by scenario perspective as well. So as I mentioned just now, whilst other people, other job opportunities could arise, from elsewhere. Likewise as well, you also have you also have opportunities as well. I think a key thing here is that how can we then be able to seek out the opportunities beyond borders, and also likewise as well, how are we able to have a platform, right, to give opportunities for people here to actually serve the world as well. But I think one thing is important is that in this very, borderless world, I think it is very important to be relentless in your pursuit of excellence in the domain that you specialize in.
Thank you so much for your time, Yulin. That was Fang Yulin. She's a partner at PwC Singapore and leads the firm's upskilling efforts. How has your work life been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Leave your comments below.
The The circuit breaker ends in a few days, and questions continue to pour into the Straits Times Ask ST column on what we can and cannot do in phase 1 of Singapore's safe reopening. Today we look at questions on safe management measures for businesses.
If you're wondering if safe management measures are mandatory, yes, it is a must for all businesses to put safe management measures in place to provide a safe working environment for employees before they resume on-site operations on June the 2nd. Businesses must comply with the requirements for safe management measures and any sector-specific requirements that apply to them.
Can I get all my staff to return to work on June 2nd? The answer is no. Working from home should be the default mode of working, and businesses must adopt telecommuting to the maximum extent. Employees may go to the office only when there is no alternative and where necessary, like to access systems or equipment that cannot be accessed from home. Employees should also avoid socializing with colleagues within and outside of the workplace.
And the last one, would it be possible for my business to resume operations before June the 2nd if I've implemented all safe management measures at the workplace? Well, only businesses that have received approval from the Ministry of Trade and Industry to operate during the circuit breaker period may operate on site before June the 2nd. Other businesses may resume operations from June the 2nd if they're on the list of permitted activities and services for phase 1.
More detailed answers are in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube. If you have any other questions, send them to askst@sph.com.sg. Let's now go to Dylan Ang for headlines around the world.
Thanks, guys. A Malaysian senior minister, Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said that Malaysians in Singapore will be allowed to return to Malaysia for funerals of family members without the need to serve the mandatory 14-day quarantine. However, they will only be allowed at the burial ceremony for a maximum of 3 hours, and they will have to wear full personal protective equipment. Upon their arrival, those going to attend funerals will be escorted by frontliners. Beijing has mobilized its health authorities, drug regulators and research institutes to work around the clock in the race to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. A total of 5 vaccines are currently being tested on humans in China. Chinese President Xi Jinping had earlier promised to share any vaccine globally amid pressure from the Trump administration, who recently launched its own Operation Warp Speed to accelerate vaccine research and development. The World Health Organization said that the Americas are the new epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, as deaths continue to surge in Latin America. With about 730,000 cases out of 5 million cases globally and more than 39,500 deaths from COVID-19 as of May 25th, Latin America has now outpaced Europe and the United States in the number of daily infections. That's all for our global updates. Back to you guys.
As Rihanna aptly belted out in a hit song, we found love in a hopeless place. And true enough, the circuit breaker isn't hopeless for those looking for that special someone. With physical meetups not allowed during this period, dating agencies are arranging dates for their members in the virtual world. Some are even offering starter kits to help participants get to know each other. Are these virtual dates less stressful, and will they replace the traditional dates? The Straits Times correspondents Brian De Silva and Yip Wai Yi went on these virtual dates, and they join me now to share their experiences. I should first point out that both of you went on separate dates, lest we start any office rumors. But I understand it was the first virtual date for both of you, arranged by Homegrown Dating Agency Lunch actually. But it wasn't the first time for your dates. How was the experience? Why don't you start first?
Okay, I thought mine went pretty well. But the problem was that, being a blind date, you really know nothing much about him other than what Lunch actually told me, which is some of the hobbies that he had and the job that he does. But other than that, you really know nothing. So you're going in completely blind. And this one was interesting because, instead of just finding, let's say, with a regular date, you have to find like a restaurant or find a place to go to. This was really a case of where is the best spot in my house to do a virtual date. So you have to find the right place with the lighting. And I have to say, I mean, I did it from my room, but my Wi-Fi connection in my room's not the best. So, you had fingers crossed and you go in hoping that it goes well. But yeah, other than that, it did feel kind of like a date because you were meeting a person for the first time. And so you do the usual stuff like, what do you do? I don't know. What do people talk on dates? I have no idea. But you just get to know each other, and it kind of feels the same, except that you're behind a screen. And so, actually, when I wrote about this, I mentioned that I didn't change out of my pajama shorts, and that's the truth. I mean, you can only see my head, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to put too much effort. Oh no, Brian's shaking his head.
Yeah, Brian,
But
you're shaking your head. How was your experience like?
Unlike why I actually put on pants, like proper pants for a date, just in case. And at one point, I had to show her like what was behind me. This is the same exact perspective that she saw, and I had to show her something behind me. And I got up and I was like, well, thank goodness I wore some pants, some nice pants that day. My date went well. She wasn't arrogant. I was a little bit nervous. We spoke for about 4 hours in total. And once our guard was down after the small talk was over, the conversation was very quick, very casual. Had lots of fun, and we are still in touch. And yeah, it was a good experience for me. Hopefully for her as well.
I suppose it was a good experience for you as well, right, Wai?
yeah, I mean, I'm always open to trying new things and meeting new people. So yeah, why not?
All right. And Brian, I just want to ask, why should or shouldn't people try virtual dating?
Okay, I think I'm very for it. I mean, before this, I was against it because I prefer the face-to-face sort of meeting. But I think usually, in this weird times that we're living in, human contact is so important. Mental well-being also is very important, especially if you're single or you're living alone. I think making that human connection is very important. So the next best thing is definitely virtual dating. So very important. And if anything, it's a fun way to meet someone,
Right. Now, why? So Brian mentioned about physical contact, and we know that one of the 5 love languages is physical contact as well, right? And do you think virtual dating will replace traditional dating, or is it more like a complementary element?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not going to replace. It's I think like what Brian says, it's a really good next best option for now since we're all stuck at home. And it is really efficient. You technically could meet quite a lot of people pretty quickly, and you can exit. There's exit plans. You don't have to fake the phone call and all that. You really just have to cut off your internet or just turn off your laptop and you're out. So these are good points. But no, I mean, you still hope to be able to meet the person in real life. So if it goes well in virtual dating, I think there is the hope that you'll meet them after circuit breaker's over and you can still meet them in person.
And Brian, you said you are for virtual dating. So what advice would you give to those looking to try out virtual dating?
So it was my first time. My only advice would be have a good mic, obviously good lighting, bring water just in case you're gonna be talking a lot, and obviously come engage, come prepared to engage your match because you're only looking at each other. You have no other distractions, right? So you need to focus on her, and she has to focus on you or whoever you're meeting, and be open to experience. Leave your expectations at the door, and have fun. If it doesn't go well, try again.
And of course, wear some pants, right?
And wear some pants, some good pants, not pajama pants.
What about you, Wai? What are your words of wisdom?
I'm fine with my pajama pants option. That worked fine. But I think what he said, definitely good mic and good Wi-Fi is very key. And also, I think what I didn't really like about the virtual dating is the fact that the camera is on me the whole time as well, so I could see myself, and I found that quite scary in a way because you're more self-conscious. So I don't know, maybe
intense, right?
it is. Yeah, you feel like you're in the spotlight the whole time. So it'll be great if I could just cover half the screen. But other than that, I would say it's a fun option. I mean, meet more people. Why not? We're bored anyway, right? So it's an okay option, I think.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on to share your experience. Definitely, it's been a positive experience for the both of you trying virtual dating. I was speaking to my Straits Times colleagues, Brian De Silva and Yip Wai Yi, about their experiences in the virtual dating world. Their accounts are in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube. Let's go back to Dylan for what's also in the news.
A heavy police presence and tight security clamped down on Hong Kong protesters' plans as they took to the streets against Beijing's plans to impose new security laws. Police said at least 16 people, aged between 14 and 40, have been arrested for possessing offensive weapons including petrol bombs and screwdrivers. Local media said some 3,000 officers will be deployed in anticipation of further protests tonight. Elon Musk's SpaceX is set to launch 2 NASA astronauts to the International Space Station from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The launch ends a 9-year hiatus for NASA's human spaceflight since the retirement of its space shuttles in 2011. The launch is scheduled to take place at 4:33 a.m. on Thursday morning, Singapore time. And finally, an Indian yogi whose claims of spending decades without food or water earned him a band of devotees has died at age 90. Prahlad Jani claimed to have been blessed by a goddess as a child and that enabled him to survive without sustenance. The claim drew much skepticism, especially from medical professionals. I'm Dylan Ang, back to you.
Thanks, Dylan. Those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.